let's go over some of the basics of working with animations. Specifically, we're going to be targeting web banners in these particular videos. They're going to be dealing with advertising, but they're going to be dealing with working with animations because, as we know, advertisements, banner ads are animations, and we can create them effectively within ImageReady. This is something that can be done quite effectively in Flash as well, but since we have the export to Flash options available within ImageReady, it's going to make it a lot easier to get our advertisements to the web in the form of SWF files. First thing we need to note is that if we do a File New, we can see that we have custom sizes here that we can work with. And there are a bunch of web banners down here below that you can target depending on which ones you need to target. And they slide between these two areas here. You have others as well. As you're working with the ImageReady and working on animations, you can make things to be whatever size you want. Of course, if you're targeting a web banner, then you're going to want to target that specific size that's going to fill your needs. Secondarily, after you get your target size, you're going to want to target to a particular output size because your animations can't be so large. You have to fit within the constraints of the particular groups that you're working with. They have their limits for how they want things to be within a certain amount, a certain bandwidth, and you just need to figure out what that is going to be based on the groups that you're going to be working with, the advertising groups and other concerns as well. Maybe the site that you're actually going to be delivering this banner to, the best thing to do is ask them what the bandwidth limitations are. Things are a lot more spread out these days because of the progress in the bandwidth. A lot of people have a lot more bandwidth to use, and the banners can be more elaborate, and there is less strict nature when dealing with these. We're just working with, we can see our image size here, 468 by 60. Now, when we work within the ImageReady interface here, we're dealing with the animation palette here. You're going to need to have that open. You can get that from the Windows menu, as you can see, in order, alphabetical order. And you're, of course, going to want your layers available here, your history as well. You may want to edit your preferences and get that up in the undos here. I have 66. Make it as you wish, as much memory as you can spare. You can also work on this file in Photoshop. Just do the File and then Edit in Photoshop, and you can manipulate the image as you want to. The animation part that's going to be added, all the additional data is going to be preserved, but you need to work on your animations within ImageReady. So you can do whatever you want in Photoshop and come back, and your animation is going to be preserved. But note that this is going to deal with different sets here as we move around. Just a simple test to show you how it works. What you're going to need to do is deal with your layers here. Deal with your layers as if we're dealing with our rollovers and things like that we can do, other things that we talk about in the Photoshop capabilities videos, in the Photoshop capabilities training disc. What you're doing is, for each animation that you have here, for each frame of the animation, because when you deal with animations, you're dealing with frames just like you would a cartoon or anything else. The layers that you have here, they're each going to have certain properties that are going to be described in each frame, meaning that if we just take a click over here to this second frame, you can see that certain things are visible and we have different effects placed on our layers here. And the effects can be changed over the course of the frames. You see that there are no effects on this one. There are none here, but the background has changed. So each frame is going to adjust the properties of our layers as you would with the layer comps and things like that. We've talked about that in layer comps and other videos dealing with the Photoshop capabilities disk. Now, that's how that's going to work. We also have a tween going on here as well. We'll talk about the different features as well of how to actually create different things within the animations that you want to produce, including tweening, which is going to take one shape or one image and then tween it into something else. As you can see, it's going to have subtle changes like you can do within Flash, which is pretty cool. Let's just talk about what we did here real quick, and then I'll explain the controls here at the bottom as well. Alright, so if we just had a basic ad, I'll just bring something in here, just real quick, to show you what it looks like at the defaults in the beginning. Transparent background. You can see that we have one layer, one frame. that's how it's going to come in. So if you don't have the animation palette visible, you're going to have a frame there, whether you want it to be there or not. And you can't delete that. So you have one frame, and this is going to work with your layers here. So we can create another frame if we want to, and it's going to duplicate whatever was in this other frame, and it's going to take the layers that are there. If we add a layer here, we're adding layers in either of these particular frames here. And notice that they're both visible here. There are other things you can do with layers and some manipulation techniques, and we'll explore those in the near future in these videos here, but I just want to get started with the beginnings of all the controls and things like that. Alright, so at the bottom you have your ability to play here, to step through. You can select the first frame from here, you can go back to the previous frame, advance to the next frame, etc. Add your frames as you want to, delete frames as you want to, and just go through the frames, step through the frames. You can also play your animation, and notice that it's looping. You have the ability to loop your frames, loop your animation. You can do it once if you just wanted to play once. It'll play and stop. Looping forever is going to constantly make this loop. And you can also choose other, which is going to play a certain amount of times. So if you entered 5, for example, it would actually loop 5 times, and then it would stop. So it comes in handy sometimes if you're doing something and you want something to repeat a certain amount of times and then you just want it to stop because you don't necessarily want to get on people's nerves with your advertisements. Well, I don't know who actually takes that advice, because most advertisements can get on your nerves if you just watch them for a few minutes, and it depends. You see a lot of things going on a lot of web pages now that do get on the very annoying side, so I tend to have want to help in regards to explaining that you should actually not be so annoying in your advertisements. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. So a lot of times you want to fall into the bucket of not annoying your customers, not annoying your potential customers, because I think they definitely take note of the annoying advertisers, and they might lose respect in those regards, especially if your ads are going to be quite visible all over the place. It can be reminiscent of, say you're at a newsstand and you pick up a magazine and you just want to take a quick peek at it. You're waiting for the train comes in 5 minutes. Next thing you know, you pick up a magazine, or one of those magazines. You pick it up and about 40 of those subscription leaflets fall out. You know, the stray leaflets that they used to put into magazines, they still do, but they don't put it so they fall out, because they basically wanted them to fall out because it was free advertisements. Trust me, I worked at a magazine, so I know how that works. But anyway, you tend not to pick up those magazines if those leaflets are going to be falling out, and you know that you only have a couple of minutes, so just something to think about. But anyway, this is your advertisement here. This is a basic thing, getting started. And we'll talk about working with this one here and how we actually came about doing it.